Good morning. It is 8 a.m. on Thursday, the 11th of March 2021. My name is Arran Hunt. I'm a partner here at Stace Hammond and I head up the Migration Partners team. As always, this video should not be taken as being legal advice. It is just merely our views on immigration here in New Zealand. If you're looking for legal advice, then please get in contact with us, as we can only give legal advice to our clients who have engaged us. There is an email in the description below that we can be reached at. Now, most of this video is actually going to be a recording that I did earlier in the week. I did a 2-hour live session for the Immigration New Zealand Punjabi Hindi radio news channel, but I did want to just add something to that before we sort of go into the main video. During that session, we were asked a number of times about whether the skilled migrant category allocations had stopped over the past month. If they had run out of visas that they were able to grant. Now, we've been in touch with the immigration manager who actually oversees the skilled migrant queue. She was very fast in response, and we do thank her for that and coming back to us with to answer our questions. Now, she has confirmed that the allocations have continued, but they have been in lower numbers. She confirmed that it isn't down to the NZRP, which we'll cover in the video, but just the number of visas that the government allows immigration to grant in any 1 year. But she confirmed that these numbers are delivered evenly over the period of the time as we expected. They're given out and sort of spread over the year. So they are not at a point of having to stop processing due to NZRP, and that they won't be. She confirmed that they have reached the lower band of NZRP, but they can continue to allocate and process applications until the upper band is hit. And they are on track to hit the support band or come close to it at the end of the current NZRP period. So they are doing enough applications so they can do as many as they possibly sort of are allowed to under government, but it is spread out evenly over the period. Therefore, we want to emphasize this very clearly. There has been no pause in the allocations due to NZRP numbers or a pause in the allocations whatsoever. The recent slowdowns that people have seen in the last month or so have been down due to COVID-19 alert levels. Now, SMC applications are processed at the Manukau branch, and they're all paper-based applications, not online. Therefore, when Auckland goes into level 3, the officers have to start working from home. As the applications are paper-based, the officers can't work effectively on those because they have to be in the office to handle the paperwork that is all there. The officers can do some things, so there is some sort of movement. You may have heard from immigration officers during those lockdown periods. But it really does limit as to what they can do as their job really needs them to be in the office to actually be completely 100% effective. Now, as Immigration New Zealand only allocate applications to officers who have capacity to take on more applications, this reduction in capacity and how much they can do while we've been on lockdown for several weeks, broken up several weeks, means that the applications the delay of the applications being allocated flows on because these applications they're working on already get sort of pushed back or delayed in how things are done. So over the past 4 weeks, she has provided the following information. So after the allocation on 15th of February 2021, they were allocating applications from the 25th of July 2019. Now, after the allocations on 22nd of February 2021, a week later, they were still on 25 July 2019 due to the lockdown that Auckland had in the previous week. So the officers were able to do very little work on those paper files. Now, after the allocation a week later on the 1st of March 2021, they were on to 26 July 2019. Now, it's only a small step forward, but the allocations on that date in that previous week consisted of primarily priority applications and other files such as applications sent back to the queue from the IPT to be looked at again. These were higher than they would normally see due to the lockdown in the previous week, in which, of course, there was no allocations. So the non-priority queue only moved up 1 day because all of these priority and other applications sort of have to be prioritized before them. Now, after the allocation on the 8th of March 2021, they're still on 26th of July. Of course, due to the next lockdown taking place on the 1st of March. So that has again pushed the allocations from being pushed further because the staff will have to work from home and being unable to do so effectively because they're paper-based applications. As we saw, of course, 2 weeks ago, or as we saw just now, a lockdown seems to be sort of a 2-week effect. You have 1 week where there is no allocations taking place because the immigration officers are at home. And then you have the second week of delays due to those priority allocations and the other files that would have been allocated in that 1 week that they were locked down, then being pushed to the next week. So a 1 week lockdown will sort of cause a 2-week delay. On that basis, she doesn't believe we'll see much movement this week on the non-priority allocations. But as long as we don't move back into lockdown, fingers crossed that we do stay out of lockdown for several months now, hopefully, the non-priority queue should start moving again by the 22nd of March. We should start seeing that allocation date moving forward away from 26th of July 2021. So that sort of does cover the topics raised, the questions raised in that discussion. I said I would go get more information, and there's the information we've come back with. So thank you to the immigration manager for clarifying that and confirming that there are still visas being granted and applications being allocated. It's just that being Auckland-based and paper-based, the lockdowns are causing these delays. And of course, February and the start of March was a pretty bad sort of 1-month period for lockdowns. Now, up next, of course, is the video, the 2-hour video we did earlier this week, which you may not have seen. It was done on a Facebook Zoom video style. I've edited it to remove some audio issues we had for a couple of minutes where this new microphone wasn't quite working right. And the quality, the picture quality, isn't that great because it is a Zoom call that's been recorded on Facebook. Hopefully, however, you can still hear me, you can still get some sort of value out of this. It does primarily look at skilled migrant, but I do answer questions around other areas as well. But before we go into that, I want to just raise a comment that was left on a previous video that I recorded during lockdown. And that commented on a number of things. It did comment on the fact that I had a different background. Of course, I was in lockdown, not in my office. But one thing that really did bother me was the comment on the use of New Zealand slang. Now, in response to that, kia ora, ko te reo e he reo, wai mana e Aotearoa, he mea nui ki te hanga I tēnei whenua kia meharo, e hara e te reo mangari, ngari e he reo ata a huia e te ana hei wā hanga o te iwi no te whenua te whenua. And my Māori is very, very not good, but it basically said, hello, te reo is an official language in New Zealand. It forms an important part in what makes this country amazing. It is not slang, but a beautiful language that forms part of the people that belong to the land. So yes, I will keep using te reo, and I hope to become more fluent in it myself, as it is part of being in this country. Now, with that out of the way, we'll go on now to the recording I made previous this week. And as always, kia kaha, stay safe.
Okay, so let's get started. My name is Arran Hunt. I'm a partner here at Stace Hammond. It's a law firm in Auckland and Hamilton, and also head up the migration partners team here at Stace Hammond. Thank you for Gurpreet to have me here today to speak to you all. Hopefully you'll get some value out of this. We're asked to speak today about the skilled migrant category, which is for a lot of you will be sort of the normal way to get to residence here in New Zealand. So we're going to sort of just go through where things are currently, a bit about the process itself, and those who've applied already, where things look for you, and those who will be applying in the future, where things are going to be going from here on. Now I'm going to just start off with, of course, this is not legal advice. I am a lawyer. I'm very cautious about making sure that I don't give legal advice in certain scenarios. We're just going to go through the skilled migrant process and just look where it's currently at, and as we discussed a moment ago. One thing to note is that at times you may hear me refer to, sorry, a bit louder. You will hear me referring to 2 letters, then a number, or a letter, then a number. That's a referral to the operational manual. The operational manual is the rules that Immigration New Zealand should be following, and they generally are pretty good at following that. Now, you'll often see me referring to the operational manual on YouTube or on Facebook, and when I try to answer a question, I'll often refer people back to the operational manual, as that is the place where immigration will be going, and that is where you should be getting a lot of your answers from. At times it is a bit confusing. It is a very large manual. There's hundreds of pages, so we will try to help you out through it, but I will refer to it a couple of times in my little presentation here. So thanks to for having us on. We're going to talk about the skill migrant category. We're going to have a quick background on SMC, that's skill migrant category, look at where it is currently, look at the delays, upcoming changes, and hopefully answer some of your questions that are going to come through. Now, some questions I won't be able to answer if they're a bit too specific. So if you ask me a question, can you apply for SMC? I can't really answer without looking at a lot more information that you won't be able to give through this short presentation, but I can answer questions as well as I can to give you an idea as to the process, or as the any general questions you might have. Okay, so we're going to just start with the process now. Of course, one of the primary ways to get residents to New Zealand is skilled migrant category. Often you'll go through the student visa, work visa, skilled migrant category sort of pathway to residence. It is a two-stage process. You enter an expression of interest, an EOI, which is done online. The EOI is your request to be able to apply for a skilled migrant category. It is not the application itself, that comes later. Now, the EOI is calculated on points, which is gained from age, qualifications, employment, experience, with bonuses are available throughout that. Currently, it's 160 points. I know that you're probably aware of this. We're sort of going through the fundamentals to start with. Now, every 2 weeks previously, those applications that were at 160 points or higher were drawn. They were then reviewed, and if everything was okay, you would get an invitation to apply an ITA. You then had 4 months to submit the actual application, and that was all done with paper. That's when you are providing all the actual documentation, your passport, your birth certificates, your qualifications, employment agreement, all these various documents. It is done on paper, which meant that you would need to have a lawyer or a JP or someone to sort of certify the copies. You know, don't send originals to immigration just in case things do go missing. We are going to do a review of that on our YouTube channel in a few weeks, just sort of going through the process, all the paperwork. But that's how that's done. The application itself would then be sent away within that 4-month period to the Immigration New Zealand office. At that point, it would arrive there. They would stamp it with the date it was arrived. It would then go into a pile. It would take several weeks to get to it. They would then scan it into their systems, check to make sure it had what they call the lodgement criteria, the most important documents, the passport, birth certificate, those sorts of things. It would then go into a queue, and a very long queue, which is one of the big issues we currently have with skilled migrant. And we're going to try and keep that bit pretty simple, but it is a bit of an issue for everybody, this long delay you're having for those of you who have applied. Now, how it works is that the government sets how many residence visas Immigration New Zealand can grant every year. It's called the NZRP number. Now, when the last government came into power in 2017, they included New Zealand First and the Greens. Now, they were not big on immigration, especially New Zealand First was not big on immigration whatsoever. So we saw a drop in the NZRP number, the number of residence visas that immigration could grant in any year. That number dropped, and at the same time, the percentage of those visas that could be granted to skilled migrant also dropped. So you had the original number, then you had a smaller number,
and a smaller percentage to skilled migrant. So to give rough numbers, we had before about 30,000 skilled migrant visas to be granted per year. That dropped to about 18,000 or so. So it was almost halved. However, the number of applications didn't change. There were still people like yourselves who were applying for a skilled migrant, but they were granting fewer of them. And that meant that the process took longer and longer as Immigration New Zealand were not able to actually grant those visas as fast as they could before. They had this limit on how many they could grant. So it means that the application time went from sort of 8 or 9 months that we saw for allocation 2 or 3 years ago. We're now looking at about 20 months. So it's more than doubled, and it is getting slower. I did the calculations about a month ago, and it looks like things are going to get slower, probably getting slower by an extra week or two delay every month. So if you applied, so basically currently those that applied in July 2019 are being looked at now. That's when they're being allocated to an immigration officer, and they still need to be processed. There's still a number of months to go. This is just when actually it's given to someone's desk and they start looking at it. So July 2019 is getting allocated now, several months still to go before those visas are granted. So so for those who applied sort of a few months later, they're probably looking at 2 years plus. So it has gone much, much slower. Now there is a priority system in place, and that meant that those of you who may have applied and who had a job that requires registration, so lawyer, nurse, doctor, electrician, people that require registration to do your job, or if you were paid $106,000 per annum or more, then you could get priority. Now, priority meant that instead of waiting for 20 months to get allocation, you waited 2 weeks, which is a much, much faster process. If you are sitting in the queue and you do get a pay raise above $106,000 or $106,080 per annum, tell immigration and they can push you into the priority queue. We did it for a client a few months ago, and within a week of getting the pay raise, they were getting allocated to an officer. And looking now, teachers, yes, teachers require registration, so they should fall under the priority queue. I would need to check that specifically. But they do require registration, so they should fall under there if you meet the other requirements. Okay, so that covers those of you who have made applications. Now, as we met, so one thing to mention here is that with the delay in the applications, what we're seeing is that it's now 20 months, but they also, when the border closed, they stopped processing applications from offshore. So those of you who have applied from offshore, your applications are not being processed. They are sitting in queue and have been since the border closed. So that means that when the border does open, that will actually add to the backlog, because you'll have 10,000 applications that will suddenly be put back into the queue, making things longer. Now, quickly saying the reason why the people offshore aren't included is because Immigration New Zealand cannot grant a visa that cannot be used. Now, as a residence visa cannot be allowed to enter the country without having been here before, it means that a residence visa granted offshore cannot be used to enter New Zealand. So they will stay off the queue for now. So, okay, in regards to the $106,000, it's $106,080 as the base salary. That's basically worked out at a 40-hour week. Okay, we get into the ones who applied to EOI now. So looking through my notes here now, for everyone who wants to apply but hasn't yet, and this includes those of you who have applied and put an EOI in, we're going to include you in this section. You will know that the draws that were taking place every 2 weeks did stop in March 2020 and have not restarted yet. Now, the suspension is due for review about now, actually this month. However, we expect the draws to remain on pause until either the border is open or it's about to open. That seems to be the way that the government is handling this. Now, we say this because last year, Immigration New Zealand did do an internal review of the skilled migrant category. We first heard about it just after the first lockdown. We talked to some of our contacts at immigration, and it was happening at that point, and they were having discussions as to how these points should be done. Now, later in the year, we heard that the INZ had completed that review, and they had decided as to what the new points were going to be, how they're going to calculate the points, whether there's going to be a change in the point requirements. We had a webinar due with Immigration New Zealand about October last year, and that was postponed to allow them to announce these new changes. And we're still waiting for those new changes to be announced. So Immigration New Zealand, for whatever reason, they decided they would go, okay, we're going to not provide these changes for now. And then in the last couple of weeks, we've seen the Ministry of Immigration announce yet another review of the skilled migrant category. Now, they've just had a review. They have, we're waiting for them to provide the information from that review, and they haven't done anything. It's just, we see this announcement of another review of skilled migrant as just a delaying tactic. The government isn't ready to open it. They aren't ready to look at what is a growing issue with the number of applications in the pool waiting, people like yourselves who we think should be in this country wanting to apply for residence, but they don't know how to handle it. So they've announced another review so they can then say, hey, we're not going to open the pool yet because we're having a review. Now that's how we're seeing the situation. Officially, they haven't announced a further delay yet, but we do expect it will be delayed again in the next few weeks or a month before it reopens. They'll push it back again. We do hope we're wrong for all of your sake, but that is how we are sort of reading this situation. Now, Lauren asked the question, do you think it's worth submitting now if we're not in the pool? It's actually the next thing on my little draft here. The question then is whether it's worth submitting EOI, knowing that INZ has announced that changes will be made. And this is where the law differs between an expression of interest and an actual application. So if you applied for a work visa or a student visa or some other kind of visa, typically they should keep the laws that were in place when you applied. Those are the laws that get applied to your application. So that the rules in the operational manual at that point is what they should be judging your application on. That is just standard legal principle. However, an EOI is not an application. The application is what comes after the ITA, the invitation to apply. The EOI is generally you're asking permission to apply. And so the rules on an EOI can be changed after you submit it. They can actually change the rules and say, okay, you've submitted the EOI, it's in the pool now. They have the right actually under SM 2.5, there you go, operational manual, which allows for the point requirement to be changed on things that are in the pool. SM 210 allows for Immigration New Zealand to use their discretion, which allows them to again make further changes as to what's required to be drawn and to go to the next step. So yes, what's in the pool could change. They could say, okay, this isn't good. Well, we're going to change the points. We're going to do something with it. And all of those those EOIs already submitted could be impacted. However, the fact that they could be doesn't mean they will be, and that's what the government hasn't come through to us on yet. We've asked them this question: will you be changing the EOIs that are already in the pool? Will you be applying a different set of rules to those than when they were submitted? Of course, this is an unusual situation. Previously, when they've brought through a new set of rules, they've always told us in advance. They've said, you know, we're changing the rules in a month's time. You have 2 draws before then. Any draws done after that will be under the new rules. But this time, the pool speed has been drawn for a year now. So it doesn't mean that they are going to do that. They may do that. They may not do that. They haven't said. So what we're saying to our customers, to our clients, is that if you fit into the points now and you're not certain whether you will fit into the points in the future, it could be worth applying now just in case. Now, they could come through and say, no, we're changing the points. Then you're in no worse position really than before. There is the application fee, but we'd probably look at trying to get those refunded. But if you didn't apply and then they came through and changed the rules so you're no longer eligible, but you had you applied before they changed the rules, then you're probably going to sort of regret not applying, because that could you could have missed out on your chance. So we're saying to our clients, if the client's well over on points, we're fairly comfortable, then we say to the client, well, you can wait and see how it goes. If the client's sitting on just 160, they're just making it through, and we're concerned that perhaps they may not get through if they change the points, then there's not much to be lost from giving it a shot now. Of course, it ranges from application to application how it's going to alter. Quick question here, do they freeze age at time of submission or only when inviting to apply? The age is set at the point that you get the invitation to apply. So if you are on the threshold now and you do the EOI and it is not drawn until after you've gone past that age, unfortunately, you will not be eligible. So you must be under the age when you submit the EOI and when it's drawn. So without there being any draws taking place currently, that is going to be cutting out a few people from being able to apply because they're hitting that 55-year-old threshold. Will the process time become 3 years given the current backlog situation? That is a difficult one. It must be said that the current government, being Just Labour, is much more immigration friendly than the previous government with New Zealand First and the Greens. If you read through the Labour manifesto when they got elected, there was some immigration policies in there that talked about making things easier for applicants, reducing the threshold, reducing some of the requirements. But they were all worded that they would do this after the pandemic. So after things were going back to normal and possibly in 2 or 3 years' time. So we do think that these things will get extended out further. They will take longer, and possibly it might even get to close to 3 year sort of process unless there's a major change made in that NZRP, the number of numbers they can grant. But we do see in the long run, things should get better now that you've lost those parties that were pretty anti-immigration. One thing I wanted to cover here, there was one point of skilled migrant category applications which do cause a lot of fuss. And that is, I've got my notes finished here. That is ANSCO. That is the matching of a job to ANSCO. Now, those of you who don't know, probably most of you do, ANSCO is the system that they use for defining what a job is. So if you go to apply for a job, whether it's a essential skills work visa or through skilled migrant, you'll need to tie it to a job on ANSCO, and there'll be a 6-digit code and a name for that job. Now, the name of your job isn't so important. It's the tasks in your job, the tasks listed in your employment agreement, and the tasks you do on your job. Immigration New Zealand will look at that task list, and they'll look at the ANSCO code you've included in the application or in the documentation you provide, and they'll look at ANSCO and say, okay, does it match the job? So say if you're going for, good example, retail manager. That was a great example. Actually, no, cafe manager, restaurant manager, very similar to retail manager in the tasks. That requires things like you're managing staff, you're setting the menu, you're working, you're setting the prices, you're handling stock, you're handling complaints. These are all tasks that they're going to look for when they're looking through the employment agreement. Are these tasks listed? Now they're looking for what they call a substantial match. It's not a perfect match, it's a match which is very close to perfect. There could be some small changes. Some jobs may not have a particular task, but it has to be really, really close. And that is what they're looking for. If you do not get that substantial match, what they'll usually do is they will say, okay, it doesn't meet this, it's the next one down. The next one down will often not be a skilled role. So if it's not cafe manager, it could go down to just waitress or waiter. If it's not a retail manager, it could just be a sales assistant. And that is no longer a skilled role, which means you're no longer eligible to apply for skilled migrant. So making sure your employment agreement and making sure your job actually matches ANSCO is very important. The problem with ANSCO is that it's also very old-fashioned. the modern jobs often don't fit into this nice little box that they paint. For example, one of the IT service roles for helping people out with IT issues with hardware and software is designing web pages, which is a very different job. Or if you work for a big company, you may have a task there. Say if you're working in some sort of an accountant or accounts, it may be a task to do with payroll, but payroll could have its own department or its own employee who just does payroll. So sometimes we can sort of convince immigration, well, that's just because it's a big company. At other times, it will come down to immigration saying, well, it's just not a match to ANSCO. Now, ANSCO has been dropped to some degree with essential skills, now that it's based more on salary for the 3 years over 1 year rather than ANSCO, but it still has a component there. With skilled migrant, ANSCO is still very, very important, and it's one of the things that we spend probably the most of our time in the cover letter with the application, just doing that match between here is ANSCO, here is the job, here's how they match. Because without that, the application will go no further. But you will have spent the thousands of dollars on the application fee, you'll have spent the several years waiting for it, only to find out it's not going to go through, and it's sort of years and thousands of dollars wasted. So that's one thing to be very, very cautious about, is that ANSCO match with your role. Okay, I will take some more questions. And one thing I do want to quickly mention, one final thing, was I'm hearing a lot of rumors about the changes that are coming through with skilled migrant. We've heard rumors from immigration, from staff there, from journalists, from people on who have talked to us. Don't believe any of the rumors you've heard, because there's a lot of clashing rumors. I think wait until they actually announce the official changes. And at that point, then you know what it's going to be. We've heard it's going to be 160 points, 200 points, 180 points, changes in English requirements, no changes in English requirements. There's been a lot of changes that have been sort of thrown around. I think most people don't actually know. So don't listen to rumors. I think wait until you actually hear the official ones before you know what they're going to be. Okay, let's look at some of these questions coming through. We're trying to stick to skilled migrant, but I might jump a few others that come through. Okay, does the case officer conduct an interview to the applicant once they look at the applications? Sometimes. The case officer has the right to conduct an interview with the applicant. The first thing they'll often do, the first thing you'll often hear from a case officer will actually be go to your employer rather than you. You will not be aware they've been allocated or who they are. Your employer will say, hey, I had an email or a call from this officer asking about you and asking about your job. Usually it will be an email, and it will generally be the task list from ANSCO. Do they do this task? How do they do that task? Do they set the menu? Do they set the prices? That sort of thing. The immigration officer could give you a call directly. We see that more often with partnership visas rather than just skilled migrant straight visas, but they can do that. That is their discretion. They can do it without notifying you in advance. It is their choice. So the changes to skilled migrant. Now, as I said, those of you who have put into submitted an EOI, the changes made by the government or made by immigration to the point structure, if you've only got the EOI in the pool, they can be changed. If you have made an application itself, you've sent the paperwork away and you're sitting in that long queue waiting for allocation, they will not be changed. We've never seen it happen before. So we'll be very, very surprised if they looked at changing the requirements on any application, especially when there's been lots of money paid for a fee. So no, our take and from our history working with these is that if you've made an application itself, a change in the rules will not affect you. We have seen it once before when immigration offered that to be a possibility. So there was a change that was for a work visa. They changed the rules and they said to applicants, do you want to be judged by the old rules or the new rules? For our clients, it was the old rules because they worked. So here they may do that, but most likely it will just be those change in rules will apply to EOIs, not to applications already made. Okay, work to residence, bit off topic, but the
The priority, the 106,000 priority also applies to work to residence applicants. So if you were sitting on over $106,000 per annum or $106,080 per annum, and you were sitting in the work to residence queue waiting for allocation, they have the same delay in allocation for work to residence as you do for skilled migrant. You can try and get priority allocation by being a registered profession or by having $106,080 per annum as your salary. Okay, Ipt Appeal. Oh, these are fun. I had an Ipt decision back 2 weeks ago with the residence granters. That was great. Okay, so an Ipt Appeal, there is 2 options that the Ipt have. The IP2 or 3 options. They can say decline. They can send it back to immigration to be reviewed, or they can grant a visa. One I had a few weeks ago was just a visa was granted by the IPT, and that came through actually today. We got the visa through for our client, residence visa. Most of the time it will get sent back to immigration to have them look at it again, and at the direction from the IPT as to where they went wrong. Now the IPT doesn't mean that the IPT is saying to immigration, you must grant this visa, and immigration will often look for things they may have missed the first time or issues that may have arisen since the original decision was made. But yeah, so that's the sort of the ways the IPT can direct things. Okay, the job vacancies on Seek, I haven't, but I do know from clients, I have a number of commercial clients that are having trouble finding employees. So this idea of that there's lots of jobs out there and there's lots of Kiwis to fill jobs is just rubbish. We have clients who are crying out for employees, and we are fighting for them to try and get those employees, because there is just in some fields no employees available. So yeah, I think that the government is sort of being a bit untruthful about how they're handling that. Okay, look at the next one. So SMC allocation is still going on, but only for those who are onshore. Now, Ipt, I did cover actually the reason for the delay earlier in the video. It comes down to the government telling immigration under the previous government, the Labour Green New Zealand First government, to reduce the number of visas granted, and that was basically immigration being told, give out less visas. So they have a number of visas that they can be that they're allowed to grant every year. The government sets that figure, and they were told you're allowed a smaller number, and only a smaller number of those can be given to skilled migrant. So I'm going to leave it at that. Go back and read the rest for more details on that. Okay. Okay, SAT. So the SAT, I'm guessing you mean the ones that they get sent off for special advice. Okay, there are certain countries or certain places which Immigration New Zealand will be more cautious about of people coming from those countries, and they will send away for additional checks to be made. You'll often see NSC or SAT or the various things popping up, and they can take a long time to come through. Now, they can take up to 6 months. Immigration New Zealand will not chase those inquiries for 6 months, which is a horrible situation. We have had clients who have had to wait. One was about 3 or 4 months for a country that she was a citizen of, but had never actually been to, and they'd gone back to that country to check on various police work. Another one, which was a famous ballerina, and it was done on her as well, as though she was some sort of threat to the country. So there is it's a ridiculous situation, but it is within the allowances of immigration to go and check these things for whatever reason. It is often based on certain countries. Definitely the Middle East can often do this. Eastern Europe, we see Russia a lot being flagged as requiring further checks. Okay.
more questions. Okay, so can those who are in queue apply for a new work visa with same criteria if current work visa expires? If your current work visa is expiring, you should apply for a new work visa before your current one expires. Skilled migrant is residence, work visa is temporary entry. You must at all times hold a temporary entry visa while your residence visa is being processed. So if your work visa is going to expire, apply before it does expire. You get granted an interim visa in between if you don't run out of work visa, but you must apply before it expires, otherwise you are in New Zealand unlawfully, and that just creates a big issue. Okay. Cover white residency has slowed down. Not quite sure what that question there is. EOI selections, yeah, as I said before, most likely won't be resumed until later this year. Okay, ANSCO and Essential Skills Work Visa. Now, they did change the Essential Skills Work Visa so that ANSCO was no longer a factor when they came into how long your visa lasted. However, they will still look at ANSCO to make sure that you are qualified for the role. So if you are being paid over $25.50 per hour, so you can get the 3-year work visa, and say you are applying for a job as an accountant, then they'll look at ANSCO and okay, accountancy requires these qualifications or this year's of experience. Does that match the applicant's experience? So it means you can't just go and apply for any job. You must be able to match that job. So, and of course, they'll look at the ANSCO requirements in the job description itself, make sure that the ANSCO and the job matches up. So ANSCO is still a factor to make sure that the job, that your qualifications and experience match the job. So it's still important even when you are earning over that median threshold. Okay, Essential Skills Work Visa processing time. There is actually a website on the immigration website. If you go and Google Immigration New Zealand processing times, that tells you how long it's currently taking to process those onshore visas. And included on there is the Essential Skills Work Visa. From memory, it's about 2 to 3 months for most applicants, but it will tell you how long it's taking to do half of them, 3/4, and 90%. So it's giving you an idea as to how long it's going to take. So SMC applications are still being allocated. It's just that July 2019 had a lot of applications in it. I think so that's what they're doing. As I said, it is just that delay in the visa staking process. Accreditation. Okay, this has been raised a lot because of the changes that have been announced, but we're not sure of when. Okay, so companies that go for accreditation now, it comes down to how good their documentation is. If you do an application right the first time, it should be relatively smooth. If you don't provide, documentation that's sort of this thick, it can be slower. Now, accreditation, of course, is coming to, it's coming to an end, kind of. At some point, all applicants will be required to be, so all employers will be required to be accredited. I know there's been a video about that recently. However, we haven't yet got the information of when it's going to take place and the details about how that's going to take place. We were supposed to be told before Christmas the process behind employers being accredited, what the process was going to be. We're now into March. We haven't heard that yet. So we can't see this taking place at any point in the next few months. That will be probably close to the end of the year. We think immigration is going to be using COVID as an excuse to sort of push that out further. Okay, Dudu, I'm trying to cover all of your questions as we go. Okay, so the pay rate for residency. Okay, so pay for residency will change along with the one that's Essential Skills is changing in July. So it'll be $27 per hour will be the figure from July for skilled migrancy as well as for Essential Skills. This is set by Stats New Zealand in the June quarter, the previous year, and that's the figure they came up with as being the median figure. So that's what the immigration will be applying to skilled migrant and to Essential Skills. So $27. Okay, if essential skills work visa is expiring at the end of March and you haven't received the automatic extension email, then I recommend that you go to immigration and ask them to confirm that you are getting the extension. Most people should, you should, but go to them and get them to confirm it and ask to write it onto your file that they have confirmed that they have told you you're getting the extension. Okay, is there a rule that says we need to have 6 months or more left in the job contract when a case officer is assigned? Most of you shouldn't have contracts. There should be permanent roles. So if you're going to go for skilled migrant, then yeah, they're going to be looking for having a period of time going forward. Fixed contracts are only available for a very small number of roles, typically for such as maternity leave, you're filling up for maternity leave. Otherwise, it should be a permanent role. And Immigration New Zealand will question that and they will decline if they think that the role should be permanent and not a contract role. Okay, is it possible if we don't have study-related job and want to apply essential skills work visa? Okay, so the requirement comes down to the job itself. Some jobs will only require 1 year work experience. Some will require 3 years work experience. Some will require a qualification. Someone mentioned earlier the farm jobs, the recent changes to that. Now the herd manager role, which has been put into that, which was is actually what they call a low skill job, but is now being pushed up to being considered a skill job. That only requires 1 year of experience instead of a qualification. So yes, that 1.5 years of experience you have may be sufficient, depends on the role. Okay, scrolling down. I've answered that already. Some comments. Okay. Person here who was sadly made redundant. We have some clients in the same situation. So you apply for a skilled migrant, you're sitting in queue, and unfortunately due to COVID, your job comes to an end. What we're doing with our clients is we're getting our clients to try and find a new role, a new skilled role. If you get a new skills role, you can notify immigration that there's been an update to your application. You provide them with the new employment agreement. They'll ask you to send them a copy signed by a lawyer to certify it through to their office. They'll then add it to the application, and then when it gets allocated, they will look at that job, not the previous one, and they will look at that for your application. This has always been the way it is with immigration. We have it a number of times. We have clients who have actually been, during the process, they've been allocated, their visas being processed, and they've got new jobs. They've done, so I've said, hey, sorry for that. Here's the new job agreement. They've got a new job. And they've gone, yep, that's fine, and they've started the process with the new job. So that's not an issue. Just try and get that new job in time and get the application through to, the agreement through to immigration to use. Now I've covered that already. Okay, the July non-priority queue. I said before, these things are taking longer than a month to do. Now, it hasn't been 5 months it's been in July. It has been probably about 2 or 3 months. It's been sitting in July 2019. But it is over time getting better. Actually, no, sorry, it is getting slower. Sorry, I forgot to correct that there. It is getting slower. And I've said the reason why being the NZRP number that the government has limited. So that is very much on the government. Okay, Gurpreet is jumping in. Okay, I've actually lost my Zoom login, so let me just jump on again. Sorry. So I'll just,
22.
Okay. So you're on, can I see the questions? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so those of you on Zoom, if you want to ask some questions, okay. You can hear it, great, you can hear me, great. Okay. If you move out of Auckland for a new job, will my current SMC application be affected, please? If you move out of Auckland, then definitely tell immigration that you moved out of Auckland and ask for those bonus points. The good thing about those bonus points, the 30 points for out of Auckland, is that they're very easy points to get. Probably easier to prove that than to prove work experience. So it will affect your application, but in a good way. Now, if you have applied for the SMC out of Auckland and you move into Auckland and you need those 30 points, then you're in trouble, because those 30 points you will lose when they review your application. Okay, next question. You can submit your EOI with 160 points. The question being whether they're going to change the requirements for the EOIs. We covered that earlier, and right now we don't know. The government has the right to change the points for EOIs already in the pool. So they can do that. They can raise the point requirements. So yeah.
Aaron, can we ask the question via audio?
Certainly.
Yeah, Aaron, just a quick one. As a lawyer, on one hand, Immigration New Zealand is stating that you always need to maintain a legal status by means of a work visa, essential, some sort of visa, bound to you to maintain a legal status. On the other hand, you're having people like myself and several others who have applied for under the SMC category. Now, at the time of application, the duration was 9 months, or 10 months, or 11. That's always been subjectively changed, right? Now, I'm trying to get the best expertise from a lawyer, right? On one hand, you have this always variable timeline, and within this time, we have had to renew our visas, whether it's essential, whether it's whatnot, right? So this means that we have not only we are paying again from our pocket, so this is obviously a money-making scheme for the work visas. Well, we're happy to pay the money, we're happy to pay the money. That's all good. But what is that accountability? There is a clear incompetence from INZ that it's due to their incompetence that timeline has exceeded. That's why we had to apply for work visas. Does that make sense?
Did you see my earlier part of this video about the NZRP number? So the government gets the residence number. So that's not INZ, that's the government suddenly saying, no, that's it, no more visas, or much less visas. Immigration New Zealand could have been more vocal about that and said, hey, just so you all know, this is happening. But of course, they're also government employees. So they don't want to be talking bad about the government who employs them. So it falls more at the feet of the government than the INZ. They set the lower target, they set the lower numbers. They did a horrible job in doing it, and that's what's caused the delay.
And fair enough. I mean, as you've stated it, we all have probably read it a million times that the last government didn't send up the NZRP, and so following that, the current immigration or whatever department was following the previous ones, even though it wasn't actually published. They were just following those. Am I correct?
Yes, the most recent government were supposed to announce the new figures in January last year. They failed to do so. The previous figures were released about 9 months too late. The reason they failed last year was they blamed COVID, despite COVID hitting us 2 months later. So yeah, it's basically an inept minister. Innes Galloway was useless. I'm happy to say that publicly. And they've made a mistake year after year in regards to NZRP numbers.
Yeah, well, that sounds reassuring, you know, coming up from someone at your place, that it's not just us trying to hallucinate or making things out of. Obviously, you can understand the frustration. But hey, thanks a lot, Arran, for answering that question. I appreciate that. Thank you.
No worries. So Santiago, I've answered that a couple of times now regarding the reduced numbers of residence visas that can be granted. That's all down to the lower NZRP numbers. We do hope that at some point they will be raised, but I think it's going to be not until the borders open and the government feels a bit happy about making changes. Right now, they're a bit slow in doing anything.
So those people who have already, can you hear me now?
There we go.
Yeah. Sorry. So my question is, most of the people from August month and September have received the email that within 2 months or 3 months of time, they will be receiving a case officer.
Back there from Mr. Natal.
Yep. Can you hear me now? Yeah. So most of the people have received the email that within 2 months or 3 months of time, they will be receiving a case officer. So, those people who have already, can you hear me now?
Okay. I think we can. Okay, I got the question. So if you can just hit mute there. So okay, so there's a bit of a delay between the two feeds, Zoom and Facebook. So yes, those of you who have applied in sort of August, September 2019 will have received an email from immigration asking for documentation. So from IRD, payslips, that sort of thing, to prove it. They're asking that in advance. I think this is immigration's way to try and move things through as fast as they can to help not delay things further. Typically, those are things they would ask for when they got allocated, but now they're doing it in advance, so that when they get allocated, they're ready to go. So we are seeing, once things are being allocated, we are seeing things going through a bit faster than we did a few years ago, because immigration are doing whatever they can to make things faster. But their hands are tied by the numbers they can grant. So yeah, so that's why they're asking for those things.
So this is not a confirmation that even if they have sent an email that within 3 months or 2 months of time, you will be getting a case officer assigned. There's no confirmation, because seeing the backlog, I guess the people who have already submitted their application at the end of the July month or in the initial August, they may not be receiving the case officer within the stipulated timelines that has been given by the immigration.
Yeah, so that sort of estimated timeline is an estimate. It is sort of the next couple of months we're going to do this. It isn't going to be a fixed thing. So we had clients, in the last few weeks who have been asked their documentation, they provided it, and it could be another 2 or 3 months before they actually get allocated. It is really a best guess scenario. We looked at the numbers for month by month, and July was a rather large month for applications in 2019. So that's why it's taking longer perhaps than previous months. But it is a best guess. So we think they're near the end of July now. So almost into August is what we're waiting to go through now. Yeah.
So my last question would be, the application from the 25th of July was picked up on 5th of February, but in last 1 month, there has been only 1 day of movement in the immigration applications of the non-priority SMC queue. By any chance, do you know the reason of what could possibility be? Because just 1 day movement, otherwise it was before that, it was like 5 days or 6 days moving in a week's time. But now it's been just 1 day movement in the last 1 month of time, which has been a major concern.
We need to go look at it, but most likely they ran out of visas. That's what it's going to be.
So the people from August who have already received the email that the case officer will be assigned in 2 months of time, that means it doesn't hold up anymore.
They generally they'll get the yearly allocation, and they'll sort of divide it up sort of by month or by week, and they'll sort of work through those. So they don't get rushed through them all and then have nothing to do the rest of the year. They will try and allocate them across the year. For whatever reason, they have got through a whole bunch faster than they thought they would. And now they're sitting there waiting for the next batch to be released. That's the most likely reason why it's only gone 1 day in a period of time, because they've run out. So at some point, they should, but that'd be the reason why. Although I will go and ask them and try and find out, but that's the most likely reason.
Sure, thank you. And we do not have any idea as such on when they will resume it, if in case they have run out of the visas.
When they get the next batch through, which probably should be in the next sort of week or two, or however they divide it out. But yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Arran.
All right.
Appreciate that.
All good. Okay.
Oh no, I'm just I
Okay.
I was quite impressed by the question I've asked, because we're probably sailing in the same boat of August, and running out of quota doesn't really help.
It's, yeah, they sort of don't provide us the information that at times would be useful for us to know. If they said to us, look, here's the number of visas we get granted, or here's how they're granted, or here's they're allocated, we can then less say to our clients and you guys, okay, this is the date they get more visas. But as we've seen with the whole MIQ situation, they're just sort of almost on a daily basis chucking something out there. Everyone panics, and then nothing for a month. And that's the sort of the approach they're taking. If they're a bit more open with how things were going and with timelines, it'd be a lot easier for everybody. But yeah, they're not.
And just last one thing, I don't think that there could be any possible legal action that could be actually taken against any of these things.
No, there's a thing called parliamentary supremacy, where basically a parliament has the right to do almost anything they want to do. We've got a constitution in New Zealand, so basically the government can say this is the rules and that's the rules. And unless they're breaking their own laws, which is, it's definitely unfair. It's definitely causing a lot of costs, it's causing a lot of stress and divided families. But we haven't yet seen anything illegal, because the government's very hard to do things illegal. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, Arran.
Hello.
Hi. Just want to ask you about IPT. I think you already took that question a few minutes back. So I just wanted to know if IPT is successful, and if it goes back to immigration, then as per your experience, how much time it's going to take for immigration to get the outcome or give the outcome to the client, and whether they are going to ask the same NGESCO tasks which they already agreed in the past, or they're just going to look at the only few NGESCO tasks which they were not agreed.
Okay, so it would come down to, so if they had already agreed that this is the correct NGESCO task in the past, then we'd be very surprised if they then said, actually, no, that person before was wrong. Immigration staff generally don't like saying that their colleagues are wrong. So they said that they should be following the same operational manual, following the same rules, they should come to the same decision. So the IPT has obviously corrected them on one of those points. So immigration, with regards to ANSCO, if they said before that task is correct, that should remain correct with our experience. Where things might cause an issue is where they declined previously and they raised a second point, which they raised as being a possible issue, but we haven't looked at in the decision. They can re-raise that. An example is where someone may be declined for one reason. There's also an issue perhaps with character. Perhaps they didn't provide information that they should have provided. And immigration might say, well, there's a character issue here. We haven't considered that because over here there's a reason for decline. But when it goes back to immigration, they could go, okay, that reason there we were wrong on, that's okay. But the character issue here is still an issue, and they'll sort of deal with that. So going back to immigration, most of the time when it gets sent back, immigration will say yes, probably I'll say most of the time. But if there are issues there, then they will sort of pick up on those, but they shouldn't change their mind on any points.
All right, thanks. And so that means we only have to worry about the tasks which they didn't agree in the past. Whatever they agreed in the past, we shouldn't be worried about that, right? They're going to ask new documents on those again.
If they raised an issue now which they didn't raise before, then I would be sort of raising a complaint that they're trying to find a reason to decline. That there was no, so without seeing, of course, the exact situation, generally, if they've said before that those tasks are okay, we'd expect those tasks to still be okay.
All right, thank you so much, Arran. And are they going to take a lot of time to decide? Is it like a few months only, or is it going to be start from the beginning?
It started as a new application, but it should be sort of allocated pretty quickly to someone to look at. They shouldn't sort of put back at the queue. It should be straight away to an allocation to be processed. So it is a whole new application. It will be looked at afresh, but it should still follow the same decision that the first one does on those tasks.
Okay, yeah, that's good. So that means if the application starts from the beginning, so whatever task they agreed in the past, as you said, they might not gonna ask them again, right?
They have access to all of your files in there. So if they look at it and go, okay, yep, that was fine, they could leave it alone, or they could go and ask more questions. But they shouldn't go and ask, sort of re-ask questions and try to turn back on what they said previously.
All right, yeah. Thank you so much, Aaron.
Yeah. Hello. Good morning. Sorry, I'm joining from Nigeria because my concern is about the offshore skilled migrant category visa, because my application has been over 16 months old in the queue for offshore category, while I have a friend here in Nigeria too that his application is over 2 years old. So please, I don't know, what can we do, or is there anything going on that INNZ is trying to do to resume work? Our suggestion as offshore SMC applicant is that INNZ should process, but if they approve the visas, they shouldn't issue. So I don't know, what's your take on this? Is there anything you can help us do? Probably present our case to the parliament, or you can help.
As you know, as you probably know, the Immigration New Zealand can't grant a visa that can't be used. It's actually part of the Immigration Act, I think section 52, I think, or 49, that's illegal for them to grant a visa that cannot be used, including a residence visa to someone offshore. They can't enter the country on that visa. It'd be illegal for Immigration New Zealand to grant it. Now, we do know that on some applications, they are processing them to a point where they're ready to grant, but they won't grant them. But that doesn't apply to skilled migrants. Skilled migrant offshore, they are leaving alone just because of the massive backlog they have for onshore applications. So unfortunately, I think people like yourself and your friend and those offshore are an easy one for them to just sort of push aside to let them make the queue seem a bit shorter. So if they included the offshore applicants into the applications, instead of looking at 19, 20 months delay, probably looking at like 25, 26 months delay, because it adds extra people to it. So that's why you're sort of being left out, because you're an easy target, unfortunately. The government, unfortunately, won't do anything about it because they're politicians. They're about where are the votes, where are the people, where are the New Zealanders, where are they going to vote, and making changes for you that would help people who are in New Zealand will affect how they get seen by those in New Zealand who vote for them. And it's a horrible thing to say, but that is how the politics generally work in New Zealand, which is why we can't see them doing offshore applications until the border is open in any way, because they want to try and look as good as they can for those in New Zealand.
Sorry, last thing. When is it likely that the border will open? Because now that vaccines are being distributed in New Zealand now, I'm aware that vaccines are already in New Zealand, they are being distributed. So when, from your own perspectives, or from with your own what's it called, your own perspective, when do you think, when is it likely? Is it going to be before the year runs out, probably late this year also?
We're thinking it's probably closer to the end of the year. So we have some vaccines in New Zealand. They've so far vaccinated the border staff, about 10,000 or so, I think. They're doing medical staff next. They're starting the mass rollout in about June, I think is the current timeline. So sort of June through to sort of September, October is when they roll it out to most of the population. So it won't be until after then. And even then, we're thinking it's going to probably be on a basis of region by region or country by country. We can't see them sort of opening the borders to everybody at once. We think it's going to be possibly to those countries that have done well with COVID. So the Vietnam, the Taiwan, places that have done well, and then moving across to other countries. Otherwise, I think we would get swamped all of a sudden opening the border. So end of the year, early next year is probably the best guess.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
Can I please have the last question from my side, please?
Yeah.
That's going to be. So you just mentioned that within 2 weeks or 3 weeks of time, they will be coming up with the new numbers if they have run out of the residence visa application.
That's our guess. They haven't told us when they're getting the next sort of lump of numbers through. They should be sort of every few weeks. They should get more come through, but they haven't told us sort of a timetable.
Right, because the only reason being I'm concerned is that we have seen that in last year there was a stuck in the movement of the application, and we were stalled at December 2018, and there was no application movement during that period of time for those applications. And I'm just concerned that if this is not the same case, and it could take another 1 more year to resume the number of applications that that are still in the queue.
I don't think it's going to take a year to get restarted. The delay is purely down to a short-term. This is a short-term delay into getting into August. I think December 2018, that was a long delay. I will admit that there was a number of months I was sitting at December 2018, but then it started processing again and getting pushed through. So I don't think we're going to see the same length of delay that we had then. I think this should keep on going soon.
Sure. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Arran.
Hi, Aaron.
Hello.
Hi. Good afternoon, Jay. Hello.
Hello. How you going?
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. I have 2 questions. My first question is the category for expression of interest, is it open?
You can submit applications currently. They're just not doing draws. Haven't done draws for about a year now. And we're waiting for the draws to restart. They're supposed to restart, well, they've been delayed till April, but we think they'll be delayed further after that.
Okay. My second question, like, I have collected all my documents, and my points after I assessed my documents online, I have 210 points, and all my documents are intact. And my hourly rate is $41 per hour. If I submit, briefly, could you tell me whether I would be successful in getting that processed and invited?
I would need to look through your application. He's looking at what your qualifications are, your employment, the ANSCO code, how it matches. So I need to look at it in more depth.
Yeah, I'm a school teacher and I have a Bachelor of Education. And with 26 years of experience from my country and 2 years of experience in New Zealand. And everything is aligned to ANSCOs.
From what you've said, most likely, but like I said, I need to have a look actually at your application.
Okay.
But a teacher with that experience, with the registration, with the qualification, we'd expect should have enough points. Yeah.
Okay. Will it be possible for me just to email you what I have collected so far?
Yep, there should be in the comments. There should be an email address. People can email it as that. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Aaron. Thank
No
you.
worries.
Thanks a lot.
Hello, Arran. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you for answering my previous question regarding, well, your opinion on the origin of the backlog. I guess that's kind of the long story short answer. But one more thing that I wanted to ask you is, regardless of the many reasons, we all have the impression that this is something that could have been prevented, or at least they could have done more about it. So there seems to be some sort of negligence in the way that the government, not only this government, but the previous two, they actually approached the issue. So my question is, are you aware if there's any ongoing legal procedure, maybe by the Ombudsman or whatever other judiciary department, to hold the government accountable, or at least to treat the issues that it has caused?
From what I'm aware, there is no ombudsman involvement in that, because Immigration New Zealand, the ombudsman looks at how the departments have done things. So the Immigration New Zealand themselves have followed the rules. It's the government who has changed things. You could argue that yes, they could have done something better to keep the numbers down, but that would have generally have been raising the points to stop as many applications. That was the only thing they could really do if they were going to reduce the numbers, which would have meant people could then not apply, which could have been an option. But they do have in their powers, being the government, to decide to make the changes they want to make. We think that those who have paid what is a very high fee to apply for skilled migrant, it's a lot of money, and who are now sitting in this queue and who have lost their job perhaps, we think that they possibly would have action against the government to get a refund. The government has said no to refunds to some degree. They've said you can apply and we'll think about it, but generally will say no. But I would argue that the government's done nothing for those thousands of dollars. They have scanned an application into their system. That's it. That's $100 at max, at the most. So at least they should get a refund. And that's where there could be possibly action starting at some point if these numbers build up of people who have lost out on thousands of dollars because they've lost their job because it's been years of delay to get the application done. That's probably about as far as it could go. Because the government hasn't done what they would do, and basically, which was, we will look at and process your application. They might not grant a visa, but they haven't even looked at the visa itself, the application itself. So that's probably the limit. Otherwise, the other option is judicial review, is basically where you go to the court and you say to the court, have a look at this. Has the government, or has, even then it's the immigration department, Immigration New Zealand, who get looked at, have they done what they're supposed to do? And in regards to Immigration New Zealand, they probably have. It's the government using their abilities to do what they want, and that's what governments do. So there's probably not much legally you can do beyond sort of starting some sort of action to get a refund for those who can't proceed with their application.
Right. Just a quick last question. In your opinion, you think that after June, are they going to continue operating under the same numbers of the previous New Zealand resident program?
We think the government will stick with the current numbers until the end of the year and the border opens. I think they want to increase the numbers. This government is more immigration friendly, but they're panicked about making changes that will be seen as threatening the border. That's why they've been so slow to do with partners of medical staff. They've been slow to do with student numbers, because they don't want to be seen as, they were elected on the fact that they largely kept COVID out. So they don't want to do things which are going to be seen as possibly threatened COVIDs in New Zealand. Whether it would or wouldn't, that's a different argument, but that's the way they're handling things. So with skilled migrant, if they increase the numbers, people will go, hey, you're letting more migrants be here. Even the migrants are already in the country, but that's probably the impression that a lot of people would get if they increase numbers. So I think for now, they're going to sort of leave it as it is, wait until the border opens, and then perhaps review it and increase numbers then.
So sorry, you believe they're going to stick to the current numbers?
Just the current numbers, yeah. But they don't want to be seen as being encouraging immigration during a pandemic.
Because as far as I understand, they have almost exhausted all residence approvals for the last NZRP. So that will mean that they would process almost no more residencies. If they
do spread them out over the year. They get spread out over the year. I don't believe they've processed all of the ones they had, although I will make a note and actually find out. But I'd be surprised if they do that. They haven't done that before, and they've been tight numbers for a while now.
Well, thank you very much.
Hello. A question, sir. Please, concerning the vaccination program, for the COVID vaccination program, I am from Nigeria, and the COVID.
I don't believe they've processed all of the.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you now. Yes. So yeah, you said you're from Nigeria.
Yes, yes. The COVID-19 in Nigeria here is not too serious. We don't have so much cases compared to European countries and some American countries, but and the vaccination has already arrived. So by the time New Zealand has vaccinated over 85% of their population, so do you think they might consider Nigerian application from Nigerian to as fast as possible if they immediately open the borders?
It's a possibility. We think, I'd say that Southeast Asia is probably going to be the first one they open up to. I'd like to see Africa being opened up before, say, the USA or Europe, because as you said, it's been a lot better. South Africa not so good, but the rest of Africa's done pretty well numbers-wise compared to Europe or the North America. So we'd like to see that. Whether they do, this is politics. So Southeast Asia, very low numbers, close connections politics-wise with trade. They'll open up first if they do it that way. You'll then have pressure from the US and from Europe to let them come in. So it may come down to partially where there's the most virus and also partially who has the most trade with New Zealand. And unfortunately, that's how politics often works.
That's serious. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Right.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Tapali, how are you going?
Good. Actually, I have a question. I have applied for residence visa last year, 2020, December. So suppose before I get case officer allocation, if the quota of 18,000 residence visa approval is fulfilled, what will happen to my application?
Okay, I need to confirm whether they have fulfilled all the applications. I don't think they have, but if they have, hypothetically, then the application will sit waiting for more residence visas to be allocated, to be allowed. How they've handled it in the past is that they have spread them out over the year. So what we're seeing now could be a short sort of period where they've run out and they'll get some more in soon and then they'll grant those. So I don't think it's going to be sort of the entire year they've run out. But hypothetically, if that was the case, then the applications that have been made will sit in queue in the order they were made.
Thank you for that. And I have another question. I have claimed for level 7 study points. Suppose they unaccept that one. Can I claim for another degree, the same level 7?
So you've claimed for points. Was that New Zealand qualification?
Yeah, it was.
Then that's fine. They shouldn't decline those points because it is a qualification. It's worth points, so there shouldn't be a need to change to another one.
Thanks for that. Appreciate it. Thank you.
No worries. Question here, just quickly on via Facebook regarding ANZCO allocations treated as an exception on priority queue. No, they're not. So once it's treated as an exception means that the ANZCO code for it, the skill level is below level 3. So typically those 4 or 5 jobs, such as the herd manager, being an exception means they have been treated as being skilled, means you can apply for residency through that role. However, it does not mean you get priority. Priority is just down to those jobs that require registration or have that high salary.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Arran. Question on ANZCO codes. So if I had a different ANZCO code to, like, let's say from previous work experience, overseas experience, which is different to what I'm doing now, would that be a concern when they reviewed the application?
Not necessarily. The overseas experience is still experience if it's in a skilled qualification, it's a skilled role. So depending on what the experience was based around. So if it was around, skilled role, which wasn't exactly what you're doing now, but it's still skilled experience, that is still worth points. Where it needs to match the ANSCO, or at least be close match to what you're doing now, is when you're trying to show that you have the experience required to do the role.
Okay, so for the existing one, I need to show that I have an experience to do the job or the qualification.
Yeah, exactly. So when they look at the ANSCO code, they'll look at, okay, it says that it requires a bachelor's degree and 3 years experience, or I could say bachelor's degree or 5 years experience in exchange for a bachelor's degree. So either or. So you need to be able to show that you have the qualification and or the experience required for the role.
Okay, so and that experience should be fully matching, or because the previous role I might have done half of what's required for this job.
It comes down to the role. They will do a match to ANSCO on those roles. They will often, if it's a pretty big overlap, they will often sort of let it go through on that. Areas like IT, we often sort of see where there's big overlap in roles. If it's completely different, then they're going to say no. So there is some give and take there.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Okay, a question here, just interesting, just quickly from Facebook. I have an SMC application in the queue for 13 months. I'm eligible for residence from work. If I applied for residence from work, when I get a CO for my SMC, can he also access my residence from work?
Then that's fine.
So yeah, on the question there for Mayank, actually, I've never actually had that situation. If you have a CO for allocated for a skilled migrant or for resident from work, they should process whatever one they allocated the application for. So if you're going for a skilled migrant and your CO gets allocated, that's the one that they should be processing, not your resident from work. So they shouldn't change across between them. Sorry, next question.
Hello, can I ask a question?
Yes, hello.
Hi, thank you very much. And just wondering, this June 2021 June, they're gonna renew the NZRP this year from June.
They're supposed to. So the NZRP happens every 18 months. So it was supposed to be, I think it was December 2019, January 2020, when they failed to provide the last number. So it's supposed to now come through, the next one's supposed to come through, June, July this year. Whether they do provide it, that's another question. The one last time they failed to provide, the one before that, they provided 9 months late. So yeah.
So if they didn't give during June or July, they're gonna use the old one, the old quota thing?
That's immigration's process so far, is that if they don't get given a new number, they use the same number as they got given last time.
That's good, thank you. So the thing is that for the SMQ, there is the almost stop 1 month allocation for the SMC non-prioritical. So do we have to wait until June or July this year, or they may be before that, they're gonna back to the normal allocation for the MSQ?
I would be surprised, as I said before, I don't think that they've run out of visas for the year. I think they're going to have some more release in the next few days or the next week or two. I'm surprised if they did come through all at once and they've run out. That would be a big issue, and it would be in the media. You'd be hearing me bashing my drum about that if that was the case. We don't think they will increase the numbers this year with how things are with the border. As I said, they were trying to keep the border closed and be seen to keep the border closed. So I don't think they will increase the numbers, or they will increase them early. So I think what we'll see is that we'll get more release soon.
but I will be checking into that.
Thank you. We're all waiting for that. We all want to know when they come back to the normal allocation, because last time it's too long, almost 6-9 months. There's no the much allocation. For this time, we are so scared, we're so afraid, and we want to know when they can, eager to know when they can back to normal allocation, because 3 weeks, 1 day, it's just ridiculous time. So we want
I'll be chasing that tomorrow with my contacts at immigration and trying to find out what's going on there, to where these are going next.
Yes, thank you very much for that, and we're waiting for that. And also a question, because in July there will be a new work visa, and there, the 6 work visa become 1 work visa, and we want to know for the essential visa holder who already applied the SMC skilled migrant visa, if they didn't get a result before July this year, and we're gonna use it to the old policy. So the new policy gonna affect us, or they have new policy for the people who have essential visa under SMC and not get a result yet.
Okay, so the planned change from the 6 visas into 1 in July, that was based around all employers being accredited before they could hire a migrant. Now that was supposed to start happening at the end of last year. We're supposed to get in November, December, here's the accreditation requirements, the new accreditation rules for all employers to get in place before July. We're into March now, we haven't had those rules yet. And we're still waiting for, like, the 6-to-1 thing we heard about a year ago. And we've had nothing new since a year ago. So we can't see it taking place in July. It's going to be delayed until later in the year because employers need time to get accredited. So we don't think that's going to occur. We think essential skills will be around for a while longer yet. The only change we'll have in July will be the increase of the median wage to 27. That's the only change. Everything else we think will be delayed until later.
Thank you. And last question, because we know that for the essential visa who applied for SMC, you can have like 1 year and 6 months, 1 year for time renewal and 6 months. And if this new policy, launch, we hope we can still use the old policy to us. Do not need to credit employers or things too complicated for us who already submitted the skilled migrant visa.
Okay, that is, I wasn't going to mention any of the rumors we're hearing regarding the changes to skilled migrant, but that is one we've heard about from several people, from a journalist we spoke to, from people at different locations, was that 1 year sort of easy work visa that you could get under skilled migrant and under essential skills, where there's no requirement to prove a labour market test. The rumor, and this is very much a rumor that we have heard, is that that will be removed. We'll be surprised if it was, but that is what we have heard from a couple of sources. Now, because we do have this massive backlog in SMC being processed, people will still need to go out there and still get probably a 3-year essential skills work visa just to remain lawful in most situations. So we're telling our clients not to rely on that 1 year, because that 1 year is not long enough anyway to do the entire process, but to look at getting a 3-year work visa where you can.
Thank you very much. Sorry, last one. So you mentioned that the immigration, they did not run out the quota yet, but why the allocation so slowly since last December? Their move is very slowly. Since last December, they become slow for the allocation.
It just all comes down to those numbers that they have to grant, which aren't enough numbers. And the government's just holding them back from granting too many visas.
So what can we do except waiting?
And make some noise. That's basically all you can do. The general public isn't aware of this. General public is to some degree sort of blind to a lot of this.
Yep.
We've been trying to raise some of these issues with the media and with the government, but most people don't. You'll hear about it in the news one day, and the next day there's something else, and people forget about it. This country's, this country is built on migrants. My parents were both migrants. I'm first generation.
Yeah.
we need migrants. We have so many jobs that are unfilled, and we need you all to stay here. That's such an important thing to this country. So I suppose make some noise, but of course people are scared, of course, to do that because you don't want to sort of stand out and be a target. So yeah, make sure you stay here lawfully, make sure you have that visa keeping on going, and where you can, make some noise, but do it together.
Got it. Thank you so much for the encouragement. Thank you so much.
I wish I could offer a better solution, but unfortunately, it is what it is.
So it's all depend on their quota numbers, right?
All down to the quota, how many visas they can get. It was up to Immigration New Zealand. They would just be, processing the applications and giving visas. But it's not up to them. They get numbers set to them, and they get told this is how many you get.
We do calculation. There's still 5,000 places left, people, so they can still do the normal allocation, but there's still 5,000.
They can, but they're spreading it out over the year, so that they don't run out at some point and have like 4 months of nothing. That's why they spread it out.
But you think from June, July, they're gonna definitely back to normal allocation from June to July this year?
No, I think the government won't look at changing the numbers until after the border opens.
That's too long. It's too long for us to wait.
Unfortunately, it's a while away. Yeah.
Yeah. Got that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the time. No questions. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Hi, Arran.
Hello.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I'm on a post-study work visa, and I've applied for my skilled migrant SMC category residency visa on November 2019. And I've been in the same role for the last 2.5 years. And recently my employer, he wants me to jump onto some other role. It's actually like a promotion to my role. I'm on a technician, it's a civil engineering technician role, which I've applied on, but now they're offering me an engineer role. So will that be a problem? Because,
if the new role is a skilled role, and it sounds like it is a skilled role, most likely, you meet the criteria under ANS code to do that role. So if you look at ANS code for that job, it will say you require this qualification or these years of experience. If you meet that criteria, then you can basically say to immigration, hey, just so you know, I've been given this promotion, here's a new employment agreement, and they will update your application for that new job. So that they don't expect you to sit there at the same job for years, and things change, and they understand that. So if you let them know, they'll give you an address to send the new job to, the application, so the new employment agreement to. They will then add it to your file, and they'll change it to that new application.
Okay, sweet.
It's very normal. I did it for a client recently. It's very normal, and he was granted his visa a few weeks later. So that's normal, yeah.
Yeah. So should I be applying for a variation of conditions, because I'm not on a closed visa, I'm on an open work visa. So I just have to update my new contract, new variation of employment terms, right?
So for your temporary visa, for your open work visa, there's no requirement for a variation because you have no condition to where you work. For your skilled migrant, you just notify them there has been a change, you've got a new job, and they should let you know where to send the paperwork to.
Oh yeah, sweet. Thank you very much.
No worries.
Hi, Arran.
Hey, Jaka.
So the question is, for example, as you said that it's good to apply for another work visa before the changes comes for the accredited employees, changes for accredited employees. So for example, if the open work visa ends on the next year, 2022, does it mean that it's better to apply for work visa before, before accredited work visa, accredited changes comes, but there is 1 year ahead? Will that work? Since it's a very long process.
It's hard to say because we don't know what the rules around the accredited employer that the new visa process is going to be. They provided us with the very, very basic levels about a year ago, and nothing. So it's hard to say whether it'll be
an easier process in a year or be a harder process. So if we had clients who had visas expiring sort of later this year, I've said to them, well, you know the process, you know you can get the 3 years now, you know, give it a shot, you know, maybe in April or May to get the 3 years then. Because you've got it next year, you can apply, you can apply now, but it's hard to say whether it's worth applying now or not because we don't know what the new one's going to be.
All right, but the question is, if, for example, apply now, but the visa ends 2022, like July, it's like a lot of time ahead. When the immigration says that you have like a year ahead and you're applying for a new visa, something like this?
No, there's no requirement for your visa to be only a certain period left. If they ask, you could just say, well, you're bringing through changes. We thought we'd do it now while the rules were this way rather than the new rules. And that's completely honest and fair answer. And they shouldn't hold that against you. Actually, they're not allowed to hold it against you. They're required to follow the operational manual. That's what it is. And yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Arran. Thank you for this. And just last question. So we are not sure yet whether they would be open the IOE on April, right? So there is like possibly that it would be extended, as you said, right?
Yeah, they haven't announced it yet. We expect it will be extended, but that's just our guessing really. It's us looking at, you know, how things have been going. They could open it up. We don't know yet. They haven't announced it.
Awesome. Thank you, Arran.
All right. Hassan?
Hi, Arran.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Hi, thank you for your kindness, for helping us providing the valuable information. So, actually, I had a 3 years essential skilled work visa, mid-level, and I applied for SMC last, I think 2019, December. I'm still working for the same company. So last year when my visa expired, essential skilled work visa, I applied. So I applied for SMC and I received 1 year work visa. And now I'm really worried because I don't think all of the employers are really happy to get the meet the new requirements. And I'm not
when did you apply for 1 year, sorry?
I received 1 year essential skill work visa because I applied for the SMC.
Yep.
And I asked them to give me 3 years, but they didn't because I applied for the SMC visa. So my question is, can I get 3 years essential skill work visa if I apply now? Because this year I have made both education and work experience requirements for the LTTSSL.
Yeah, then there's no reason why you can't apply for a 3 year work visa now. Not at all.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so now I have made both education and work experience, so I will be able to get 3 years work visa.
If you meet the requirements for the LTTSSL, then yeah, you'll be able to get that. That 1 year skilled migrant sort of without the labour market test visa, you can get that. It isn't a requirement that's the last visa you have. If that's not enough, you can go and get another 3 year work visa after it.
Yeah, because my current visa will expire in November.
Then it's probably worth, before they bring the new rules in, yeah, it could be worth looking at getting a 3 year work visa under the current rules if you meet those requirements. Of course, when we get the new rules, you might find that that's better. But if you know that you can meet the rules requirement, then probably look at, yeah, meeting them as they are. Okay, Harinda.
Hi, Arran.
Hello.
I'm working as an ECE teacher, and I launched my application in last March. So a case officer has been assigned, and they have asked for lots of evidences for my relationship proof with my husband, who is offshore. So last evidence he asked for my husband's chest X-ray in November 20, but that we have submitted on 3rd of December. And since then my application is sent for the legal advice, or the case officer, whenever I asked for the further proceedings, so he told me that your application is with internal advice or legal advice since early December. So can you please tell me how long it can take, and what sort of this stage means?
So you said it was internal advice. The legal advice, generally, we don't hear that term before. I haven't heard that term before. The internal advice, it could be, typically he could be asking one of his senior members, the technical advisors, the TAs. He could be asking them a question, but that wouldn't take 4 months to do, or 3 months to do. So typically, that sort of delay, it would be because they're waiting for something from outside immigration. So it would be with the SAT or with the security check or something else. But he should be able to give you more information as to what the delay is. Because, yeah, legal advice is not, I haven't heard that term before.
So last conversation that I have with my case officer, she told me that your application is sent for legal advice because of COVID lockdown. It is taking more time. She used that term legal advice.
Yeah, it's not a term I've heard before. Generally, there aren't. I've never heard that term before used by immigration. It might be, a senior member or a technical advisor, a TA advice, technical advisor, but legal advice, no, that's a new one.
Okay, if it is sort of like that, a team will sit and discuss the matter, or whatever this look like. So can you please tell me how long they can take for this, because my open work visa is going to expire in October this year.
Okay, they have discretion on how long or what they need to do, but they shouldn't take an unreasonable time. So it shouldn't be sitting there for months on end, nothing happening. Now, with our clients, generally, if I see an application sitting there and no reason for it to be sitting there, I'd be saying to the immigration officer, the case officer, what's going on? Why is it sitting there? If it then goes nowhere, I'd then be emailing him and copying in that person's boss to sort of raise it up the chain and going, hey, there's an issue here. Why is it taking so long? We do that very rarely, but when we do, things sort of get kicked off a bit faster. So, but they should be providing you with more information as to, there should be more notes in the file as to actually what they're doing. Have you talked to the call center and asked them to have a look at what's on the file?
Yeah, because they are not asking for any other document or anything from me since that early December. So every time I call them, they just tell me that your file is with, first they were using that term internal advice. Is this because my husband is offshore? Is this the case? Can be?
If that was the case, they'd use other terms. If it was looking at sort of the police issues or looking at sort of Interpol or that sort of foreign security checks, they'd use different terms. Internal advice sounds like they're asking somebody internally in immigration as to a question rather than external.
Okay.
So yeah, it's not a term I've heard before. So it's sort of hard to sort of give you an idea as to what it means because it's not something that we've ever heard. If you speak to the call center and ask them to sort of give you the last few file updates on the file, and see what it says. Also ask them if the file is actionable. What that means is that if the file is actionable, it means that they're not waiting for any documentation, or not waiting for anything from anybody else. If it's not actionable, they're waiting for a third party to do something.
Okay.
So ask them for whether it's actionable or not. and that might give you an idea as to whether it's them being slow or whether they're actually waiting for something from outside.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Hi, Arran. Can I ask you a quick question? Hi. Thank you so
Hi,
much.
Christina.
Quick question. So I applied my skilled migrant residency visa in December 2019. Currently, I'm holding a skilled migrant or skilled whatever work visa, which will expire in August this year. So given that I've already waited 15 months for a case officer, do you think it makes sense to apply for the extension or rather go for the 3-year work visa again?
So sorry, when did you apply for it?
In December 2019, so that's about 15 months ago.
Okay, so they're coming up to July, so August, October, November, December. Have you had the 1-year extension to your?
No, that would be my question, whether I'm going down that road basically and apply for the extension or go for the 3-year visa, which I'm not so keen to do because I'm working in the events industry and there's so many people out of work at the moment that I'm actually not keen of getting my employer to re-advertise my role. So that's why I was thinking it probably would be safer to just go for the extension. But then, yeah, I'm not sure if it's going to be enough time, but technically I could get up to 1.5 years extension if I understand that right.
The 1 year, yes, 6 months is arguable. We'll come to that in a moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you have a fear that your job might not be yours if they have to advertise it, then definitely probably look at that 1 year extension just to hold you out past hopefully the current mess that the country's in. To a point where if you need to get more, then you could then do the 3-year visa then. The 6-month additional extension is actually an interesting one that I raised with immigration a little while ago now, asking whether there was an allowance for that for COVID. And the response was that it has to be, the wording is it has to be sort of exceptional circumstances. And I think COVID hitting the entire country is an exceptional circumstance with everybody's impacted by it. So you get at least the 1 year, the extra 6 months, I'm not so sure about.
Okay. But let's say if I applied around, because my plan was to apply before June, because I have a few certificates like my chest X-ray and all of this, which will expire in July. So in order not to pay for all of these exams again, my plan was to apply a little bit before that to make sure I get the application before they expire through. And so basically that's still another, 3 months down the track plus a year then of extension. That should hopefully be enough time then for them to process December 2019 applications, I would assume.
Hopefully, yeah. And we do know that immigration, they are generally nice people there. Actually, most of them are very nice people there. And if you did get to a point where you had sort of a short period left, they may have a month left on your work visa, they're doing your skilled migrant, you said to them, hey, got a month to go, can you help me push it through in time? They will actually try and do that. So you may find that if it gets a bit close, they may say no, get another work visa, and then it is what it is. But they may actually, we've seen them in the past, we've actually worked really hard to try and get things through in time to prevent the need to apply for another work visa. I think you should be okay if things don't get slower.
Okay. And then just a technical question on the application for this extension. From what I've seen, it is basically the same process as of putting a normal work visa through. So I can apply online and all of this. And then at the end, they're asking me for all of the different proofs that I have to provide. Now, because I've applied my work visa already and my residency visa as well, they have all of that paperwork already. Is it really necessary to send them a copy of my passport pictures, and all of this again?
Yes. The only difference is that in the 1113 that the employer fills out, when they're providing the proof of trying to find a New Zealander, they can not fill that in. That's the only difference.
Yeah, okay.
Otherwise, it's the exact same application.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
because it
you,
is just so much paperwork. Yeah, it is just so much
yeah.
paperwork, which I find so interesting because it is the same documents over and over again.
Yeah. So you're currently on an essential skills work visa currently?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah. So yes, it's the exact same application as normal. It's just that one box isn't filled in, that one page.
Okay. And then, sorry, just another question now that I'm thinking of it. So I'm actually expecting a baby, which is due in 2 months, actually. And I know that I have to include her in that application then as well. Now with COVID and all of this, it probably will take a little bit longer to get her passport organized after she's born. Is it possible to apply for the extension anyway, giving Immigration New Zealand a proof saying, look, we've applied for the passport, it might take a little bit longer because of COVID and until it gets shipped here, can I still apply for it, or do I need to wait until I have the passport in my hand for her?
So you would be applying after she is born?
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
Without the passport. You can apply, and then she would apply actually separately anyway. You don't have secondary applications in the essential skills, so they would apply separately anyway.
Okay.
So you'd apply for yours. Once her passport comes through, you then apply for hers and under you. So it's a second application, and then she'd be granted the same period of time as your visa.
Oh, okay. And that can be after, like, even like a few weeks or months after I've applied mine. That wouldn't really matter.
No.
Okay.
No. Immigration won't expect you to wait because she's included. Well, she's separate to you in the application-wise. So she'd apply for you'd apply for her for a visitor visa based on being your child. So yeah.
Yeah, that's what I've seen. So it's basically 2 processes that I have to do first. So first, it's a visitor visa for her. And then once my other visa expires, then she would be due for another visa with my visa together as well. At least this is the information that I got from the call center. So
you'd have 3 visas. You'd have her visitor visa when she gets born.
Yeah.
Or when she gets a passport. She needs a passport first. You'd have then have your new work visa. You then have her new visitor visa.
And then obviously my partner as well. So that's another one altogether.
As well, yes.
Okay. No, that's very good. Okay, no, awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Arran.
No worries.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
See you later. Okay, probably another 5 minutes, then I better get home to my partner. Anyone else? No one else online there. Okay, so for long-term skill shortage visas, there is no requirement for a employer to advertise if you meet the requirements because there's already an established shortage of that role. Just make sure that you do meet the requirements, not of ANSCO, but on the LTSSL list, which will often have more difficult requirements to meet. For example, I think chef requires a certain course plus 5 years experience after the course. So the LTSSL requirements are definitely much stricter than ANSCO. So don't just look at ANSCO when you're going for an LTSSL visa. After your visa expires, open visa expires, yes, you can apply for your 3-year work visa, but you must apply before it expires. Once it expires, you are in New Zealand unlawfully, so you have to apply before that open work visa has expired, as you're adding more hassle to the process. Yes, you can apply for another work visa while waiting for EOI selection. You definitely should. You must maintain your visa at all times. But your current visa expires March next year. You've still got some time on it. So yeah, the 3-year open work visa. Before that expires, you must apply for another work visa. Katniss, yes, please ask your question. Couple to go, then I'll call that a night.
Kashif applied October 2019, expiring 2022 March. Odds of getting processed in time, reasonably good, I think. That's still a year away, and October's only a few months away behind July, so reasonably good, but things could get slower. Okay, one or two more questions to go. Okay, what happens if your postgraduate work visa expires and residence still not approved? Then you are in New Zealand unlawfully. If you're in New Zealand unlawfully, your residency application cannot be processed. So if you are here unlawfully, if your post-work visa has expired, go see a lawyer or an immigration advisor immediately to get a Section 61 application made. That's an application which you make when your visa has expired, you're here unlawfully. Once you have that, you've got a new work visa, then your SMC can be processed further, but without being, if you're here unlawfully, they will not process your skilled migrant application. Gotcha. Thank you for comments about me. And New Zealand is actually quite good, but yeah. I hate INZ. Yes, I said it's the government who are causing the issues here. Okay, I think that's going to be it for tonight. I need to get home and have a break. I have a 5 AM start tomorrow. I hope that was of use. Thank you to Gurpreet for the opportunity to be here to provide some answers. And yeah, definitely keep in contact with the Immigration New Zealand Punjabi Hindi radio news channel with more people like myself doing answers. Of course, if you there's an email there for my firm, Stace Hammond Lawyers. Check out our YouTube channel, Stace Hammond. We do videos there once or twice a week going through what's happening. Otherwise, to all of you, have a good night, and I hope that was of use.